Meet Rio, a 7-year-old orphan with zero charm and less baby oil to fix that dry attitude. He thinks he's some reincarnated big shot. Haruto Amakawa, like Elon Musk trapped in a toddler's body. Big brain energy but zero Rizz stuck in the slums with a tragic past. Suddenly, he gets magic powers like that's gonna fix his busted life. Uses them to find a kidnapped kid trying to play hero. Then the fancy nobles actually let him in their school, probably hoping he won't embarrass them. Rio's got all that power and drama but still acts like a glitch nobody asked for. Keep dreaming. Maybe one day he'll level up from zero to full Elon meltdown. The story starts with Haruto Amakawa, a smelly orphan nerd, leaving his childhood home in the suburbs for the city. His crush, Miharu, begs him to stay, but Haruto brushes her off, promising he will come back someday to save her and marry her. Years later, Haruto is a university student on a bus. A girl stares at him, then the bus loses control. Suddenly, a mysterious figure named Mr. Train appears and transports everyone to another world. Haruto's memories of Miharu flash through his mind as they arrive. In this new world, a smelly boy named Rio wakes up confused and sweaty. He has memories that aren't his and forgets his real name, so he calls himself Haruto Amakawa. He vaguely remembers a grandfather teaching him martial arts, but it's blurry. 3 men burst in, surprised Rio survived a fever and were about to bury him. They complain about his bad smell ruining their food and send him to find Axe body spray they dropped outside. Hungry, Rio picks fruit since no one feeds him. He flashes back to Haruto's life, a Japanese university student hit by a train after blacking out on a bus. Rio realizes he is really just a lonely slum boy with a thirst for revenge for his mother's death. He remembers his mother promising to take him to her homeland before she was killed by an assassin. Revenge is all he wants now. Noble girls arrive asking about a missing bubbly purple-haired girl. Rio denies seeing her, but they comment on his smell and keep away. Vanessa, one rude girl, is sharp, but Celia, a silver-haired girl, apologizes and asks nicely if he knows anything. Rio warns them not to come to the slums wearing fine clothes. Celia casts a spell and detects magical power around Rio. Only Rio can see the blue flames surrounding him. The girls realize their missing friend must be in the slums. They give Rio silver coins, then leave. Rio hurries home but an assassin tries to stab him. The knife hits the bag of coins instead, saving Rio. A pink-haired spirit calls him Haruto, telling him he is a god-tier magician, and starts teaching him magic combat. Rio remembers his past training and fights the assassin. After a fierce battle, Rio knocks out the assassin and finds the others unconscious. From the brown sack, Rio hears noise and finds Princess Flora, the missing purple-haired girl. She was kidnapped for ransom and asks Rio to help her return to the castle. She promises her father's reward and a knighthood. Rio agrees without fully understanding. Outside, the noble girls accuse Rio of kidnapping the princess. They arrest him despite their earlier gift of coins. At the castle, Rio meets Charles, the king's lord commander. Charles enjoys humiliating Rio, beating him with a stick and ignoring his innocence. Princess Flora wakes and tells maids and Celia Rio is not guilty and should be sent to her room. Celia finds Rio barely alive in the dungeons and warns Charles not to harm him. Charles agrees after claiming he followed orders. Celia heals Rio with magic. Rio wakes up in the Beltram Kingdom and learns he will meet the king. Celia helps him prepare. With a new haircut, Rio enters the throne room and gets admitted to the Royal Academy of Magic. Celia warns Rio most students at the academy are privileged and may bully him. Rio doesn't mind, knowing his place. On his first day, students whisper about him being a disgusting slum kid. Because he saved Princess Flora, the king guaranteed his admission. His illiteracy makes things hard, but Celia promises tutoring. In her office, Celia, a brilliant 12-year-old professor, is impressed by Rio's arithmetic, helped by Haruto's memories. Rio admits the day was tough but not terrible. Next day, in martial arts class, peers mock Rio's stance. The instructor notices Rio's skill and invites him to duel. Using kendo, Rio earns respect but declines the offer to join Royal Knights, wanting other goals. Later, Rio studies hard for exams. He passes easily while others struggle. Memories of Miharu flood back. Results post, Rio ties for first with Christina, with Rona third. A nobleman accuses Rio of cheating, but Celia and others defend him. The group storms off angry. Celia worries about future attacks but Rio trusts her support. 5 years pass. Rio and a few others get chosen for an exhibition tournament. The instructor protests but Celia congratulates Rio, mentioning knight recruitment if scouts notice him. Rio says he plans a journey after graduation. Celia offers him a job at her lab, but Rio declines, saying marriage talks make it improper for him to stay. He reveals he wants to visit Yagumo. his mother's homeland, and briefly enters a trance, worrying Celia. The royal exhibition begins with Alfred presiding. Rio's first opponent is Charles, who once beat him badly. Charles is angry but surprised to face Rio. Rio jokes he owes Charles for his kindness. The fight starts evenly, but Charles charges recklessly. Rio disarms him and wins. Alfred declares Rio champion and sets next match with The Undertaker. Charles drinks with a Proxia Empire ambassador, admitting Rio's skill impressed him. He recalls Rio was once suspected of kidnapping Flora. The next day, Celia prepares to celebrate Rio's win but sees him with a girl confessing feelings behind the school. Celia feels upset but knows Rio's future after graduation remains unclear. Celia runs a lightning magic class. Alphonse mocks that only Rio benefits since Rio can't use magic. Celia pushes Alphonse and Stuart to show their lightning spells. They throw a few flashy bolts, but Celia steals the show. Her spells dance and explode like fireworks all over the room. Rio can't cast like them, but his crazy mana lets him copy spells just by watching. After class, Stuart pats Celia on the back but throws shade at Rio for catching too much attention from the girls. Celia shuts Stuart down and tells him to back off. Next day, the class faces a practicum test with Alphonse as their leader. They must cross the forest and reach the goal by sundown. Alphonse's dad hooked him up with a secret path to lock the win. Rona feels uneasy about cheating, but Christina shrugs it off. Stuart puts Rio on baggage duty, and Flora offers help, but Rio's stubborn and says no. They march on and hit goblins. Alphonse shows his boss skills, ordering vanguard units to power up and smashing goblins fast. He catches Rio daydreaming and calls him out. Rio hides behind trees, sharp as a tack. Alphonse is impressed and plans to push him. Following the secret map, the group hits a dead end. A cliff blocks the way. No time to backtrack. Christina wonders what's next. Suddenly, 3 orcs jump them. Alphonse fights back, but Stuart panics, accidentally shoves Flora off the cliff. Rio leaps to save her but tumbles down too. Alphonse pulls the group together and they kill the orcs. Rio's fine. After the fight, Alphonse grills what happened. Stuart denies pushing Flora and points fingers at Rio. Tension hits the roof. Rio walks out early, heading off alone. Flora refuses to leave him. Suddenly, a beastly roar shakes the earth. A giant minotaur drops from the sky. Christina's thunderball fizzles. Alphonse calls an ice lance and leads the fight, but the vanguard troops get crushed. Retreat is the only option. Christina and Rona bail, thinking Flora ran off, but Flora stays with an injured student. The minotaur hunts Flora, but Rio shows up just in time. He chops off its hand and orders Flora to get out. Rio fights the monster and beheads it. Students rush back for Flora, but Rio slips away. Rias watches Rio and spots the Yagumo bloodline. Black hair and eyes stand out. Later, Celia overhears the headmaster and Duke Gustav plotting to blame Rio for his disappearance to keep the nobles safe. Celia waits worried, but Rio returns for a brief reunion. He thanks her silently and promises to write under the name Haruto. After goodbye, Rio leaves for Yagumo. Meanwhile, Duke Gustav hands Rio's cloak to beastskin assassin Latifa, telling her to hunt him down. Rio flies out the gate, reaching Ammon, a market town in Galark, in 3 days. Wanted posters haven't shown up, so he shops freely. He senses a shadow, but shakes it off. At the market, a vendor sells a local pasta dish introduced by ruler Lisa Lottie. After eating, the vendor points Rio to the merchant guild where Lottie, a receptionist, helps him choose preserved foods. She's curious about his tea knowledge. Before Rio leaves, he writes Celia a letter saying no more writing once he leaves the region. Lottie waves him off. Another receptionist calls Lottie by her secret name, Lisa Lottie. In the forest, Rio finds someone hurt on the road. Approaching to help, poison needles stab him. That's the last time he acts all selfless. Latifa, the beastskin assassin sent to kill Rio, draws daggers. Both move lightning fast. When Latifa boosts her speed with a spell, Rio matches her strength. She fights with knives, but Rio puts away his sword, fights bare fists, knocks her out midair, and pins her. Latifa struggles, but Rio calms her with a weak sleep spell. He spots a slave collar on her neck and breaks the magic holding it. She's the same girl who died with Rio in that traffic accident. Maybe everyone got reincarnated. She's Stuart's slave, forced to call him older brother and punished for disobedience. Latifa wakes scared of Rio but cries when she sees the collar gone. Rio learns her link to Stuart and confirms no other hunters chase them. After making sure she won't cause trouble, Rio frees her but warns beastskin like her get enslaved around here. He tells her to head east to the wilderness, where other demihumans live. That's his route too. Latifa insists on sticking with Rio. He says he didn't free her out of kindness. Killing her would cause more problems. Despite her attack, He never fought hard enough to stop her from tagging along. Tears fall as Latifa offers her slave collar to Rio, begging to obey him. She hates slavery but fears loneliness. Rio lets her come but orders her to ditch the collar. On the road east, Latifa cries over her first real meal in ages. Rio sees she's wiped out, so he camps early. Meanwhile, Celia reads Rio's letter, relieved he's alive but bummed he won't write anymore. Rio's surprised when Latifa knows spaghetti, making him sure she's reincarnated too. His suspicions lock in when he overhears her nightmare, sobbing about Tokyo. Next day, Latifa spots Rio's face reminds her of a boy from the bus. She asks to call him older brother. Rio accepts. The journey pushes on through harsh lands. Rio spots a tree no one else sees, hidden by magic. Campfire fades, and Rio soothes Latifa's nightmares like a boss. Suddenly, a glowing white wolf blinds him, and 4 demi-human girls pop up. Yuzuma the harpy, Sarah the wolfman, Alma the dwarf, and Orphea the high elf. They act hostile at first, but Sarah cools things down. They find Latifa under a sleep spell. Yuzuma attacks, thinking Rio snatched her. Alma binds Rio and tasers him into Knockout City. In a dream, the woman who taught Rio spirit magic sends him chill vibes. Rio wakes up chained. Latifa's furious, demanding answers. Ursula, a village big shot, shows up and apologizes. The girls kneel down and follow suit. Ursula promises punishment and a proper apology tomorrow, then frees Rio. Next day, Ursula leads Rio to the Hall of Elders. Rio spots the world tree far off. Ursula says it's where spirit Dryas chills, visible only to those with serious spiritual mojo. She's curious about Rio. Rio meets elders Sildra and Dominic. They say sorry for the rough treatment and thank him for freeing Latifa. They offer a wish, but Rio keeps it simple, take care of Latifa. Since she's gotten attached, he wants to stay a bit. Elders agree, and Dominic jokes Rio should marry a village girl. Rio asks to learn spiritual arts and skills. Then Diaz, the village guardian deity, checks Rio out. She finds a rare dormant human-shaped spirit inside him, magic blocking and wiped out in a divine war 1,000 years ago. Rio instantly gets VIP treatment. Orphea takes Rio to his new home where Latifa and the crew chill. Rio's surprised to see Rice from Yagumo. Orphea and the girls will stay with him so Latifa bonds with others. Rio's down. Weeks slide by with Rio studying spiritual arts and living that village life. A big spirit festival honors the world tree, and Rio joins in. Meanwhile, Rio sets off to snag a mysterious egg from a cave to power up his Celestial Lion Brigade. 1 year in the village, Lady Dryas seals Rio and Latifa's stay with a kiss each. Dominic throws a feast. Dwarves are blacksmiths, drunks, or both. At the party, Orphea and the gang grumble Rio's always guarded, even though he's tight with Latifa. They want to be real close friends, and Rio's cool with that. They bounce for more drinks. Rio talks to Ursula about dipping from the village. Meanwhile, Rias takes a red pill and rockets sky high. He spots black wyverns circling. Later, Rio and Latifa stroll late at night. Latifa digs living here, mostly cause Rio's around. Rio plans to head back to Yagumo. Latifa wants in, but Rio shuts that down, warning of dangers. She storms off pissed. Village elders talk wyverns nearby. Rio sneaks into their den and steals eggs. Sarah and the girls fly out to scout and spot a young adventurer near water. They grill him. Sarah warns him not to mess around. The guy's packing an egg. He bolts on his griffin. Sarah orders a chase. Yuzuma's thunderbolts miss, but a black wyvern corners the griffin. Sarah figures the egg is a wyvern's and sends word to elders. Rias finishes the heist, smashes a red gem, and dies. His body and the egg crash down. Sarah tells Alma to keep chasing. Latifa finds the corpse and broken egg. A black wyvern lands, roaring grief over its lost kid. Rio hits the village, where Dominic cancels the festival cause of the wyvern threat. Hearing Latifa, Rio bolts into the forest. Alma saves Latifa from the wyvern, summoning her spirit animal, but attacks flop. The fight turns into a grind as the village evacuates. The wyvern traps Latifa, ready to strike. Rio arrives, snatches her, and kills the beast barehanded. Alma is shook. The other wyverns back off. Sarah explains wyverns avoid tough enemies. Next day, Latifa apologizes, drops she's from Japan like Rio. They laugh at the twist. Latifa promises to wait for him. Elders hook Rio up with mithril armor, a wyvern skin coat, supplies, and a space-time cache. Rio vows to return if the village needs him. He says goodbye and flies out. 2 weeks in Yagumo, Rio finds 0 clues about his parents. He asks Rory and Seo to take him to Elder Yuba. After he names his parents, Yuba drops the bomb. She's his grandma, Zen's mom. She says his parents' graves are in the village, set up after they left. She offers him a place to crash. Ryo's in. Ryo helps make breakfast, flexing cooking skills that impress Seo and Shin. Yuba makes Shin take Ryo hunting. Shin grumbles but agrees. Ryo's a sharpshooter, Shin can't keep up. Ryo builds a bath since none exists. Rory teases Seo for having a crush on Ryo. Shin and his crew think Ryo's just showing off for the villagers. Rory and Seo back Ryo up hard, pushing Shin back. Shin pulls attention from village girls while doing chores. Yuba asks Ryo to guard a rice shipment to the capital, Ryo's game. Fight breaks out when Shin clashes with Gon, the chief's son, over bath access. Gon wants to stay with Rory. Shin tries to defend her but fails. Yuba steps in and houses Gon in a spare place. Gon tries to start shit with Ryo but trips. Shin asks Yuba to protect Seo, she agrees. Ryo gives Seo a protective amulet that night. Next day, Ryo helps Yuba greet the tax collector. After dinner, Ryo trains outside the bath. Rory and Seo ask about his fighting style. Ryo says it's to protect a girl he loved. Gon sneaks in to mess with Rory. Ryo reacts fast. Gon knocks Ryo out. Ryo heals and traps Gon, worried about the darkness in Gon's mind. Next day, Hayate says Gon's headed to jail. Ryo apologizes. Rory and Seo thank him. They eat breakfast. Hayate prepares to leave with Gon, carrying a letter for Gon's dad, Gouki. With Yuba's letter, Hayate, Alphonse, Ryo, and villagers head for Karasuki's capital. Dala makes sure men settle in an inn, then drags Ryo and Shin to the constabulary. Shin thinks Gon got off light. Dala treats them to kamatan, a noodle dish Ryo loves. Dala and Shin light up. Next day, Shin insists Seo come shopping with Ryo. Ryo takes her out for kamatan. Seo buys a pink flower hairpin from a merchant who tells her to win Ryo's heart. On the way back, Ryo rescues noblewoman Komomo from trouble. Her attendant thanks Ryo, but soldiers show up. Ryo grabs Seo's hand and bolts. Gouki hears Komomo nearly got kidnapped but was saved by a stranger. He reads Yuba's letter, stunned. Ryo and Seo return home. Before Ryo enters, Gouki and his wife want a word. Gouki says he's an old friend of Ryo's parents. Zen was a soldier in Karasuki's war. After a duel, Zen became a royal bodyguard. Zen and Ayan got close but eloped after peace talks when an ambassador tried to snatch Ayan. Seeing Ryo's reaction, Gouki invites him to meet the king and queen. Ryo meets King Hamura and Queen Shizuku. Ryo explains his dad died young and Lucius, a family friend, killed his mom. After being abandoned, Ryo saved Princess Flora and went to a top academy. When Ryo asks about Lucius, he swears revenge. Hamura warns revenge hurts, but Ryo stays sharp. Hamura challenges Ryo to a duel, calling him one of the strongest warriors. Ryo wins with wild moves. Hamura wanted Ryo to train under Gouki, but Ryo's skill is obvious. Ryo goes back to the village, visits his parents' graves, and decides to keep pushing forward. Ryo tells Rui about his royal heritage, and she switches from formal speech to her usual cheeky self. He tells Rory and Yuba that he plans to return home next year but will stop somewhere first. He also mentions a girl back home who treats him like an older brother. The next day, Ryo visits the sewing house where the other girls get jealous when they hear him using first names so casually. Days pass quickly, and Ryo enjoys village life, which now feels like his third home. While overseeing Rias's rice planting, Dala jokes about how good a wife she would be. Ryo checks her progress and says he plans to leave after the harvest festival. Hearing this, she hides her tears. Shin, misunderstanding the situation, thinks Ryo caused Seo's tears and confronts him. Seo clears things up and Shin apologizes, but some tension remains. Meanwhile, Seo secretly trains in spiritual arts and combat. The harvest festival arrives, and a shirtless man challenges anyone to fight him in the ring. Some men push Dala into the fight. Ryo helps Ruri and Komomo with the kamen and chats with Coco. Later, Seo asks Ryo to talk privately and confesses she loves him. Ryo apologizes, saying he cannot return her feelings. Seo asks if she can join his journey, saying she's trained hard not to be a burden. Ryo declines and walks away, apologizing to Shin, who was hiding nearby. The next day, Ryo leaves before sunrise. Rory and Yuba say goodbye and invite him to return anytime. Seo watches, recalling a past talk about leaving her village for Ryo. She hesitates but then affirms her love and says a bittersweet farewell. Shin waves from afar, hidden from view. Ryo returns to the spirit village where the elders greet him eagerly. He tells them about his time in Yagumo. Latifa gets excited to hear about her grandmother and cousin. The elders ask how long he will stay. Ryo says he will wait a few months before moving on and promises to return sooner. He also thinks about bringing a house using his space-time cash, which Dominic calls double. After 2 or 3 years, Ryo returns home, finally feeling like he is back. Latifa invites him to join her in the bath, which the other girls find scandalous, though not the most shocking thing to happen. The next morning, Rio wakes to find a girl in his bed. At first, he thinks he is dreaming. Sarah and the other girls walk in and demand an explanation. Rio has no idea how to explain. The girl wakes and introduces herself as a spirit bound by a contract with Haruto. Rio recognizes her as the spirit who once taught him spirit arts but never returned. The girl has no name and asks Rio to give her one. The girls notice she calls Rio Haruto and speaks telepathically, telling him not to reveal his true identity. Rio asks her to wait before naming her. Sarah suggests bringing her to the elders. The girl uses spiritual arts to dress herself, and Rio instinctively names her Asia, after spring, because she reminds him of the season. They take Asia to the elders, who sense a new spirit. But Asia has no memory, which is unusual for high-level spirits. When asked about her abilities, she says everything. Outside, Rio duels Asia to test her strength. The fight starts with Rio throwing a rock. In close combat, Asia copies all his moves and attacks. Rio then uses spiritual energy, which she matches. They exchange powerful attacks: ice, fire, tornadoes. When the fight causes too much damage, Dryas steps in and ends it. Though Asia is not an avatar, her strength is clear. Dryas decides to teach her about the spirit world, and the elders welcome her to the village. Asia quickly learns and helps with daily tasks. Weeks later, Dominic shows Rio the house he built, stored in Rio's space-time cache. Rio plans to visit the elders before leaving again. Sarah pulls Rio aside and asks him to spend more time with Latifa. That evening, Rio realizes he has focused too much on training and not enough on Latifa. Latifa, determined, joins Rio in the bath and insists on washing his back. They share personal stories. Latifa's real name is Endo, and Rio's is Haruto. They realize they both came from the same accident that brought them to this world. Rio apologizes for not being a better brother and promises to return soon. The next day, Rio prepares to leave the spirit village again. Ursula gives him a teleportation crystal, and Sildra gives him a hair-changing earring for disguise. He asks them to care for Latifa. She says goodbye. Rio and Asia return to the Straw region, eager to see Celia. In Beltrand, Rio learns of a noble wedding. Disguised, he sneaks into his old college but finds Celia's lab empty. A professor says Celia is to marry Charles at the royal palace. After losing to Proxia, the House of Huguenot fled, and the House of Arbor arranged the marriage to secure power. The wedding is tomorrow. Rio wants to know Celia's feelings. Asia finds Celia at the palace. Celia dines with her father Roland and fiancé Charles. Charles says the marriage will strengthen Beltram. Roland agrees reluctantly. Asia tells Rio where Celia is. They reunite after 4 years. Rio asks about the marriage. Celia says Charles is respectful but hints she wants to escape with Rio. Then she urges him to leave in 20 seconds. Celia cries, confused about her feelings. Rio is unsure. Asia promises to help him understand. The next day, Rhys visits Charles. Rio senses a strong spirit but it disappears. Charles has men guide Rhys to the wedding. Celia prepares, repeating she's just a doll. Charles introduces her to 6 wives. Tennies, the first wife, warns Celia she's lowest in rank. Celia accepts quietly. Princess Christina surprises them, worried about Celia's pale look. Christina apologizes and promises to help Celia smile again. Celia hopes to reunite with Princess Flora. Charles and Alfred talk wedding security. Charles is confident. The ceremony begins with a lavish parade. Charles acts arrogantly. As Celia's carriage nears the palace, Asia telepathically tells Celia to look aside. Celia sees Rio in the crowd and cries, not wanting him to see her like this. Suddenly, security commotion rises. Rio breaks through barricades in a daring raid. He fights the guards fast. Charles thinks his soldiers can stop Rio, but Rio reaches the front, punches Charles in the chest, and takes Celia hostage. The guards scramble. Rio talks telepathically to Celia. Charles struggles, but Rio keeps him down with a boot. He tells Celia it's an act, promising no harm except to the guards. He asks if she wants the wedding to proceed or to stop it. Rio vows to prevent history from repeating. Celia, conflicted, asks if stopping is right. Rio points to her sad face, saying she wouldn't look so troubled if it were. He promises to take her far away if she agrees. Celia smiles and accepts. Rio announces the kidnapping in front of Charles like a magic trick. Rio dodges guards and leaps away. Charles orders capture, but Rhys realizes Rio is the boy who beat the Minotaur. Rhys tests Rio with an energy bolt. Rio blocks easily. An aerial unit chases Rio. He carries Celia to safety. The Griffin unit follows. Rio lands in a dead-end alley where Ecchi waits. He hands Celia to her, promising to meet soon. Rio draws the guard's attention and fights carefully to avoid killing. Alfred, the king's sword, challenges Rio. They fight evenly. Alfred sees Rio doesn't use his blade edges and unleashes a powerful attack. Blood Arthur, firing a laser. When it clears, Rio is gone. Alfred orders a sweep to confirm Rio's defeat. Meanwhile, Beltram nobility is in chaos. Celia anxiously waits. Rio arrives battered. They embrace and feel hope. Suddenly, Ecchi senses danger. Light beams shoot from the ground. She urges Rio to save them. Nearby, 3 Japanese students are confused and kidnapped by bandits. Rio arrives, hears Japanese, and swiftly defeats the bandits. The students are shocked to hear him speak Japanese. One, Masudo, says another companion was captured. Rio rushes to the last cart, finding Miharu, the love of his life. Haruto's first loves, Ayase Miharu, Ecchi, and Masato, get yanked through time-space magic right after seeing 6 pillars of light. Ecchi senses trouble and tells Rio to step up and save them. Meanwhile, Miharu and the crew end up snatched by slave traders. Rio shows up, flexes Miharu's smartphone, and calls out the traders, but the chief acts clueless. Just as Rio's about to bounce, he hears a cry for help in Japanese. The traders are full of crap. The chief orders his men to take Rio down, but Rio wipes the floor with them, one by one, crushing the whole gang. Scared out of their wits, the chief surrenders and lets the captives go. Rio meets Ecchi and Masato next, and when he frees the last captive, he's stunned to see Miharu. Introducing himself as Haruto throws Miharu for a loop. Rio figures out Ecchi's his half-sister and Masato his stepbrother. With Miharu and the others saved, Celia and Ecchi fly in, stunning everyone. Celia checks on Rio and realizes these are the people Ecchi warned about. Since they can't talk yet, Ecchi links Miharu and Celia's languages with a quick forehead kiss. Rio takes them back to his place. While Miharu's bathing, she finds out Ecchi is a spirit, which shocks Ecchi. Rio breaks it down to Masato. This world's basically a fantasy land. After the bath, Celia rocks a tracksuit Ecchi lent her, surprising Rio. Rio figures out they got caught in some summoning magic. Ecchi asks about Haruto's past, but Rio stays quiet. Celia brings up the 6 pillars of light and the legend of the 6 wise gods. Rio adds the 6 sacred stones glow 1,000 years after the divine demon war, making those pillars appear. Rio says 6 heroes will replace those wise gods to lead people, but doesn't buy that Miharu and the others are those heroes. Miharu wonders if her friends Satsuki and Takahisa got pulled in too, but Rio can't say. As they talk, Ecchi gets sleepy, hugs Rio to recharge her magic, which freaks Celia out. Celia calls it wrong, but Ecchi says she always sleeps with Rio. When Ecchi tries dragging Rio away, Celia complains he hasn't bathed yet. Rio explains Ecchi needs his mana since she's a spirit. Celia, still uneasy, says Ecchi sleeping with Rio might send a bad vibe to Masato. Ecchi chooses to crash with Miharu, who has tons of mana. Rio agrees and leads them to their rooms. Meanwhile, the Beltram Kingdom calls on a hero named Hiroki Sakata. Rio thinks about what Miharu would say if he told her about his past life as Haruto Amakawa, but decides to leave that behind and live as Rio. He swears revenge on Lucius. Later, Celia visits Rio, digging for his backstory. Rio spills he remembers his past life in the same world as Miharu and the others. Celia figures out Rio used to be Haruto, and was 20 back then, explaining his mature vibe. Rio insists he's Rio now, not Haruto. Celia writes a letter to her dad to let him know she's safe. Rhys tells Charles Celia's kidnapping should have been a disaster for him, but Charles thinks Rio is dead after Alfred's strike. Charles cares more that he can't track Celia yet. He tells Rhys the capital's sealed and a search party is out. Rhys respects how slick Rio and Ecchi covered their tracks. Rhys points out Lyslot and the Rika Guild are big threats that need quick handling. Meanwhile, Sakata Hiroki, the newly summoned hero, turns out a cocky jerk, typical scumbag material. Huguenot, another scumbag, tries to butter him up. Rio goes shopping with Celia and Miharu. Ecchi carries Celia, Rio carries Miharu. Before hitting the city, Rio tells Miharu to call Celia Cecilia in public and dyes his hair to stay low. He helps the girls change up too. They check the Raw Guild for supplies, but townsfolk gossip gives Rio no solid info. Lyslot hears some unknown badass wiped out Charles's men and Celia got snatched. She's pissed about Celia but glad Charles got knocked down a peg. Hearing about the new hero, Lyslot thinks about summoning one to check out Miharu and the gang. Rio heads to the village of spirits. Latifa rushes to hug Rio when he arrives, with Orphea and others close behind. Rio tells Sarah he needs to talk with the elders, so she gets them quick. Rio explains the 6 pillars of light, saying space-time magic brought heroes from another world. He doesn't believe Miharu and the others are heroes since they weren't near the pillars, but suspects 2 others summoned with them might be. One elder asks how Rio talks to them, and Rio admits he lived in their world before. He promises to explain more later. Rio asks for shelter from Miharu, Celia, and the rest, telling the elders Celia was saved from a forced political marriage. The elders agree to hide them while Rio works on sending Miharu and the others back. Rio apologizes to Latifa for spilling his past to the elders without a heads up. Latifa wonders if she should share her past too. Rio tells her one of the 3 he saved is his first love from his past life, Haruto, and Ecchi's his sister. He hasn't told Miharu and the others yet. Latifa asks if he'll tell them someday. Rio shrugs, maybe later. The next day, Rio's ready to leave the village. While cooking, Ecchi frets about her brother and Satsuki. Miharu calms her down. Ecchi asks why Miharu's chill around Rio when she usually freaks out near men. Miharu thinks Rio's kindness and sharing Haruto's name might be why. Ecchi gets mad, caught up in her messy feelings about her brother. Rizz orders a revenant to grab anyone with high magic, unaware Asia and the others are in the forests. As Ecchi wonders if Miharu still loves Haruto, the revenants charge. Asia saves the group, Celia joins, and Rio intercepts one revenant. He faces the Dark One while Asia handles the rest. After wiping them out, Rio wonders if the Dark Revenant was trying to say something. Rizz notes one revenant group didn't return and suspects they got wiped. He admits killing revenants isn't a cakewalk. The king of Galark plans to meet Lyslot and invites the Beltrum hero to a ceremony. Lyslot learns the Beltrum hero is Sakata Hiroki and Galark's hero is Sumeragi Satsuki, and realizes these might be people from her past. Time passes and Satsuki, disguised as Latifa, finally meets Rio's sister and teacher, his first love. Rio's crew rolls into the village where Latifa and her gang welcome Celia's party. Ecchi and Masato get wide-eyed seeing Beastmen for the first time as Orphea, and the others bow down to Asia. Miharu and her crew start catching on that Asia might be a big deal. Rio explains how the spirit world folks worship top-tier spirits like gods. Celia steps up and introduces herself to Latifa but can't resist touching her cute tail, and Latifa lets her. Out of nowhere, Latifa drops some Japanese, leaving Miharu and the others shook. Latifa says she remembers her past life just like Rio and has already talked about it with Orphea's crew. She offers to teach them the language. Latifa tells Rio she knows how it feels to be stuck in a new world, and Rio nods along. When Miharu steps up, Latifa recognizes her as the girl Haruto had a thing for. The demihumans look spooked as Miharu's group enters, but a kid comes forward, compliments Miharu's school uniform, and Miharu fires back by calling the kid's ears cute. The village starts warming up, then throws a feast for the visitors. The elders show up, and the dryad appears. Later, Latifa guides Miharu and the others to their rooms. Masato flexes his drive to get stronger and protect Ecchi and Miharu. Next morning, Celia, Rio, and Asia sneak into Celia's old place to drop a letter for her dad, saying she's safe. They slip in through a secret passage because it's not the right moment to meet the fam. Celia bounces after the drop-off. Meanwhile, Lyslot invites Hiroki Sakata to the get-together. Sakata is so stunned by Lyslot that he almost loses his voice but agrees to come anyway. On the way to Ammon, Lyslot's squad spots a dragon and scrambles for cover. While hiding, Lyslot catches Duke Huguenot's airship and notices the annoying hero. Huguenot's got business in Galark, so Hiroki decides to tag along. Hiroki's been low-key stalking Lyslot, which she hates. Rio hears about a Galark party introducing new heroes and asks around, but the shopkeeper's clueless. Rio and crew head to Galark to check it out. Lyslot tells Hiroki she's going by land since flying near the dragon is suicide. Hiroki flips out, saying Lyslot can't roll solo with just maids. They try to shut him down, but he pushes his way in, acting all possessive and cocky. He flexes his so-called hero gear and swears he'll keep them safe, though it's clear he's more talk than action. Lyslot, Princess Flora, and Hiroki get ambushed by a monster swarm. Lyslot's maids jump into battle mode. Arya freaks seeing nearly 300 monsters closing in and guesses Rizz is behind the attack. Arya fights like a beast, making Rizz admit she's strong. Hiroki pesters Lyslot for info while she's busy calming Flora by holding her hand. He tries to be a hero with his crappy weapon but freaks out when a monster hits the carriage and charges outside to show off. The moment he faces the monsters, reality hits. He's not cut out for this. Rizz sets sights on Lyslot and Flora, summoning beefy minotaurs. One corners Hiroki and his gang, sending Hiroki into full panic mode. Arya tries to back them up but Lyslot's other monsters block her. Just as a minotaur is about to hit Flora, Lyslot saves her, but the beast swings again. Rio rolls in at the last second and wrecks the minotaur, pulling them out of danger. Flora is reminded of a time a boy saved her before. One maid asks Rio who he is, but he just handles the remaining minotaurs with ease, flexing his power and leaving everyone stunned. Rio spots Flora and instantly knows she's the girl he saved ages ago. Flora wonders if Rio's the same guy and introduces herself, thanking him for the rescue. Rio calls himself Haruto. Lyslot hooks up Rio and Flora and introduces the annoying guy who asks if they met. Rio shuts it down, saying he's a wandering swordsman. Huguenot is surprised such a skilled swordsman doesn't rep any nation. Chloe, who served Rio at Rika Guild, recognizes him as a regular. Lyslot thanks Rio again, and the wannabe hero brags about being the real deal. Rio plays polite, listening as Hiroki talks trash about sword skills he clearly doesn't have. Lyslot praises Rio, and Hiroki bails to the carriage. Flora keeps staring at Rio but stays quiet before leaving. Rio wonders if she figured it out. Rio mentions meeting Lyslot, a powerful noble. Rio offers to fix their busted carriage. On the way, Celia spots Area fighting monsters, so Rio jumps in. Lyslot praises Rio's mad skills, but Rio just credits his ancient sword. Lyslot's maids swoon over Rio. After fixing the carriage, Area and Rio find a minotaur sword blocking the path. The wannabe heroes try to move it, and Hiroki uses magic to push it, flashing Rio a smug "I'm not useless" look. The group rolls to Ammon. Huguenot tells Haruto not to be stiff since he saved them. Lyslot promises formal thanks once they arrive. Hiroki, however, insists Lyslot doesn't bow to anyone and arrogantly lets Haruto tag along. Meanwhile, Latifa teaches Miharu and the crew the Stan language, and they pick it up fast. Orphea helps with spirit arts practice. Ecchi notices Miharu kills it at control, while she struggles, feeling down. Ecchi remembers playing with Haruto and Miharu before Haruto left after their parents split. Later, Orphea and the crew talk about Rio and Latifa. Orphea recalls catching Rio crying in his sleep, calling someone named Mekan. Miharu and Ecchi get curious. Haruto used to call Miharu Mekan. Ecchi tells Latifa about her brother's betrayal and their mom's remarriage, wanting to help Masato and Takahisa. Meanwhile, Emperor Nidal of Proxia Empire gets an unexpected visitor, Lucius. Rias barges in, asking for Lucius' help. Rias complains about someone messing with their plans, meaning Rio, and says the Minotaur threat is nothing. Lucius asks what to do, and Rias orders him to kidnap Princess Flora. Flora can't sleep, her mind tangled up in thoughts of Rio. Rio and Lyslot roll in, and Area takes Rio straight to his spot. Rio updates Celia and Asia about their stay in Ammon. Celia's nerves spike, worried their real selves might get exposed. Rio cools her down, promising they'll keep low for now. Celia wants to bounce soon, but Rio's set on building trust with Lyslot. He's hunting for a certain hero, and this link could be the key. Huguenot throws Area some praise, and Lyslot starts doubting Hiroki's skills. Huguenot thinks Hiroki's got potential but just needs time. Lyslot smells a power play. Huguenot wants to use Hiroki as a puppet. Meanwhile, Huguenot's impressed with Rio crushing the Minotaurs and admits they'd have died without him. He drops that he wants to cozy up to Haruto, but deep down, he's scheming to ride Haruto's power. Elsewhere, Stuart and Alphonse, flanked by two girls, show off their nobility at a hotel. Alphonse is salty about losing the spotlight to Rio, who saved them earlier. He pushes the receptionist to swap rooms, demanding Rio's group get booted from the Garden View suite. Stuart recognizes Rio and Rio calls out the Academy bullies. Alphonse pushes hard, trying to drag Celia and Asia into a dinner with him. Rio bows out smooth, but Alphonse's trash talk hits him, calling him a lowlife. Haruto tries to slip away, but Alphonse blocks him. Rio shuts Alphonse's ego down hard, knocking both him and Stuart flat without breaking a sweat. Lyslot worries this fight could wreck her ties with Haruto. Huguenot decides to handle things personally. He storms in on Stuart and Alphonse, disowns Stuart for the mess, and roasts Alphonse mercilessly. He mocks Alphonse's talent, or lack of it, and asks if he can take down 3 Minotaurs like Haruto did. Alphonse throws out some enchanted sword nonsense, but Huguenot reminds him Haruto took down 2 solo, crushing Alphonse's pride even more. Huguenot gives Alphonse a chance to redeem himself, join a forest search party or pack his bags for Redania. Alphonse reluctantly agrees but gets hit with the demand to apologize to Haruto first. Later, Lyslot drops by Haruto, meets Celia and Asia, and spills that Huguenot wants to say sorry and invites him to lunch. Lunch is a disaster for Alphonse and Stuart. Huguenot calls them out as scumbags and forces their apologies, grinding their egos into the dirt. Hiroki compliments Lyslot's cooking, and Rio wonders if she's another reincarnated soul, given how she vibes with Earth culture. Flora asks Rio about his travels, and he shares how he's been chasing a connection to his lost parents since he was 11. Huguenot offers Rio a spot in Beltram, but Rio's heart's set on the road. Lyslot and Huguenot push hard for Rio to settle, but the low-tier hero nearby sneers that Haruto won't ever match true hero status, stirring Rio's interest. Rio digs into Galark's hero, Sumeragi Satsuki, and it clicks, Satsuki's the person he's been chasing. News drops that Beltram's hero Sakura and possibly Sendo, hero of the kingdom, will show up at the party. Meanwhile, Alphonse curses his luck as Lucius arrives on the scene. Lucius rolls up on Alphonse and his knights, who demand to know who he is. Lucius throws out that they must be Princess Flora's bodyguards. Rias shows up with Lucius, cold as ice, asking if the knights matter and if it's okay to use them as guinea pigs. Lucius couldn't care less. Alphonse snaps and orders the knights to arrest Lucius, but some want to hear him out. Lucius draws his blade and slices through half the knights without breaking a sweat. Alphonse sees his shot at glory and challenges Lucius, who just mocks him and says he'll save him for last. Lucius toys with the knights, then starts wiping them out one by one. Alphonse catches on that Lucius's power comes from a cursed sword, and they're getting wrecked. When most knights fall, Alphonse tries to bolt, but Lucius grabs him with ease and starts messing with him. Cornered, Alphonse offers cash to get loose, but Lucius knocks him out cold. Miharu drifts in a daydream about Haruto, thinking his mechan use wasn't random. Her feelings leak out without her meaning to. Flora wants to thank Haruto, and Rio wonders if she's already figured out who he really is. Lyslot sets up a tea party for Flora and Haruto to link up again, and Haruto agrees. Duke Huguenot sees him off. Hiroki comments on Flora's odd glances at Haruto and guesses she's plotting some big thank you. He brushes it off while Flora secretly boosts his ego. Alphonse wakes up surrounded by Lucius, Rias, and revenants. Horror hits when one knight transforms, and Rias spells out that Alphonse will become a perfect revenant. Lucius seals the deal with a special stone. Huguenot frets over the lost search party, wondering if Alphonse's screw-up calls for using stronger pawns like him. Rias finishes turning the knights into revenants and tells Lucius the plan kicks off at sunrise. Alphonse, now a raging revenant, still full of pride and anger, gets fed and prepped by Rias. Flora wonders if Haruto is really real. She regrets not clearing the air and feels like an apology won't cut it. Huguenot and Lyslot talk strategy. The missing search party could be dead. They plan to send another group at dawn. Lyslot wants Arya to go with them, worried stronger monsters or demons lurk deeper in the forest. Huguenot suggests asking Haruto for help, but Lyslot shuts that down. He's no adventurer. She keeps her adventurers ready just in case. Asia spots demons nearby and warns Rio. Rias's revenants march toward West Ammon. The gatekeepers blast the emergency siren. Rias's demon army hits Ammon hard. Celia rushes to Rio's room, telling him to lock in and get ready. Rio scopes the west gate, where Ammon's forces hold demons back. Asia warns of more monsters at the east gate. Lyslot, Chloe, and Knight struggle at the east gate, barely hanging on. Rio jumps in, slicing through demons like they're nothing, dropping jaws all around. Lyslot hears the east gate report and sends reinforcements, including her maid. She holds Huguenot's knights back at the manor. As Rio keeps wrecking demons, Lyslot spots it's Haruto fighting, and Chloe confirms. He's the one who saved Lyslot before, a damn strong knight. Rias and Lucius plot their next move. Rias waits for a Minotaur signal and senses Asia nearby. Rio's fighting muscles his way through demons but starts feeling something's off. The Minotaurs and humanoid demons might be chasing another plan. Rio fights hard at the east gate and checks with Asia if the city feels weird. She says no, so Rio doubles down. Natalie shows up, backing Rio and Chloe. She's impressed by Rio's strength and thanks him. Rio says he wants to meet the crew at the hotel before leaving, but first, he wants the Minotaur dead. One strike later, it's down, leaving everyone shocked. Rio wipes out more demons in a clean sweep. At the west gate, Arya and the knights fight demons, confused why the Minotaurs and humanoid demons hold back. After Rio leaves, Rias and Lucius give the signal. Alphonse, now a revenant, snarls for revenge. The demons and Minotaur flood the city gates. Rio meets back with Celia and Asia, evacuates them, and crushes revenants on the way. He also rescues Chloe's family as the townsfolk pull out. Hiroki wonders why demon attacks keep popping, while Stuart mocks him. Northern Castle orders Rio to focus on evacuating the manor. Meanwhile, Alphonse and Lucius track down Princess Flora's room. Alphonse, thirsting for revenge, crushes the guards and moves to snatch Flora, sending panic through his opponents. Stuart and his knights gear up for a fight, but Alphonse flips the script and orders the revenants to charge instead. One revenant creeps toward Hiroki, but Alphonse smacks him out cold with a single punch. He's all cocky, throwing shade at the fallen guy before locking eyes with Duke Huguenot, telling him he's next. Alphonse downs Huguenot just as fast, laughing at how weak the dude is. While Alphonse keeps clowning on Huguenot, Stuart and the knights try to jump in. But Alphonse just flings Huguenot like a ragdoll right at Stuart, soaking in the mess. Meanwhile, Rona tells Flora to get the hell out of there, hoping to buy some time. But Rona accidentally leads Flora straight into Lucius's trap. Flora demands Lucius let her go, but Lucius just calls himself human scum and mocks her hard. He drops a brutal warning. Even if help rolls in, it'll be too late cause the revenants just leveled up. Lucius keeps trash-talking Flora when Rizz cuts in, telling Lucius to back off from the humanoid spirit haunting the manor. Rizz looks more human and clearly finds Lucius's act disgusting. Lucius threatens Flora, freeze or lose your legs, then they vanish from the manor. Rio and his crew show up, and Asia instantly senses demon vibes inside. Rio hits up Lyslot for backup. Lyslot says Flora's room should be safe but sends guards just to be sure. Rona tries to hold Alphonse off but fails hard. After wrecking the knights, Alphonse zeroes in on Rona. Hiroki wakes up, power bursting out, and wipes out a bunch of revenants like it's nothing. Alphonse is shook. Hiroki squares off with Alphonse, lands a crushing blow, and saves Rona. Alphonse retreats, realizing Hiroki's no joke. Rizz calls Rio and calls in more revenants to keep Rio's team busy. Rio fights off revenants while protecting civilians. Then he hears Flora scream and spots Lucius hauling her away. Lucius doesn't clock Rio thanks to the new hair, but when he talks about taking the princess, Rio's eyes go cold. Rio chases Lucius but gets boxed in by revenants. Asia and Celia push Rio to save Flora, with Celia telling Rio to trust his gut. Rio vows to rescue Flora and bolts after Lucius. Asia tells Celia to guard Lyslot and the civilians with barriers. Celia surprises everyone by dropping multiple advanced shields. Asia smacks down several revenants, grabs Chloe's spear, and bails. Lyslot notices Asia's strength and starts wondering who Rio's crew really are. Alphonse spots Asia and charges, but she dodges smooth and kills him fast. Stab, decapitate, done. Meanwhile, Rio tracks Lucius through the forest. When he spots Lucius, he attacks. Lucius, still clueless about Rio's identity, is stunned by Rio's raw power and rage. Miharu dreams of Rio's past. She sees Lucius murder Rio's mom, but Haruto fights back and vanishes. The meaning behind this vision stays shady. Flora lights up seeing Haruto, while Lucius looks forward to a real fight, clueless it's gonna backfire. Rio demands Lucius reveal himself and threatens to kill him if Flora gets hurt. Lucius wonders what Rio's angle is, knowing Rio's tied to the humanoid spirit but not who he really is. Rio says his goal's simple, kill Lucius. A fight erupts. Rio's special robe blocks Lucius's surprise attack. Lucius mocks Rio, talking about how important Flora is. Rio keeps his cool, waiting for the right moment, then lands a flurry of punches. Lucius admits Rio's tough but struggles to remember their history. He tries to force Rio to spill his identity by threatening Flora, but Rio sees the bluff. Lucius offers a deal. Rio shows who he is. Flora gets free. Rio agrees, but it blows up in Lucius's face. Now Rio fights with Zero holding back. Rio flashes back to over 10 years ago in Beltram Kingdom, hinting Lucius hunted a certain family. Lucius realizes who Rio really is and mocks him, repeating Rio's mother's last words. Flora pieces it together, noticing Rio's changed hair color. Lucius brags he'll play with Rio, but Rio cuts off his arm, shocking him. The fight turns brutal. Lucius struggles to block and get away. Rio dominates, kicking Lucius into a tree and pounding him relentlessly. Lucius wonders if Rio's some kind of monster, but Rio owns him. Using spirit arts, Rio tears Lucius apart, leaving him barely conscious. The long-awaited beatdown finally lands hard. Rio gets ready to finish Lucius. Lucius tries to reattach his arm, but Rio burns it to ash. Lucius begs for a rest, but Rio ignores him and moves in for the kill. Lucius dodges, but Rio crushes his left eye, sending pain shooting through him. Just before Rio lands the final blow, Lucius tries stabbing Flora with a dagger. Rio blocks, saving her. Rizz crashes the scene, pulling Lucius out. Rio fumes. Rios's timing couldn't be worse. Rizz says Lucius is valuable and won't let Rio kill him. Rio calls Lucius a coward, mocking his decade-long wait for Rio to chop off the other arm. Lucius demands Rizz free him, but Rizz warns Lucius will die if set loose. Rio tries stopping them, but Rizz escapes with a big trump card. Asia warns Rio about a massive attack coming, visible even from Lyslot's manor. Lucius's role stays unclear, pawn or part of a bigger game, but Rios's interference fires up everyone's rage and thirst for revenge. Rios smacks Rio with a heavy hit. Celia worries, but Asia stays calm. Rio's good. The fight chills out. Rio's fine, but pissed Lucius got away. Flora calls him Master Rio, thanking and apologizing at once. Rio asks why. Flora says he was falsely blamed but still saved her. Rio says he doesn't hate her but wishes she'd stopped the lies sooner. No thanks or sorries needed, he tells her, pushing her gently and telling her to forget the name Rio if she thinks he owes her. Even though Rio denies it, Flora knows Haruto is Rio. He won't admit it. He decides to take Flora back to the manor. Lyslot thanks Celia and Asia, checks on Huguenot. Celia heals him while Rona spills everything. Lyslot shares news, Flora got kidnapped. Rona feels crushed, realizing she accidentally handed Flora over, but Lyslot and Huguenot comfort her. Not her fault. Lyslot adds Haruto is after the kidnapper. Soon Rio returns with Flora. She clings to him, legs weak, begging to be carried by her prince. Rio explains he got her safe but Lucius slipped away. Inside, Lyslot asks about Lucius. Rio says he hates him, holds a grudge. Flora heads to her room. Huguenot thanks Rio for saving her. Rio tries to leave, but Lyslot offers a room. He accepts. As they leave, Celia catches Flora staring hard at Rio. Lucius, badly wounded, stays alive thanks to Rios's crystal. Lucius says he could have won if his arm stayed. Rios warns him not to face Rio weak. Rio tells Celia Flora knows his real identity, and he told her to forget Rio. Celia understands Flora's weird behavior and trusts she won't spill the secret. Rio plans to return to Spirit Village after this. Miharu's friend Satsuki is the hero summoned to Galark Kingdom. Celia asks about Rio's past with Lucius. Rio reveals his revenge is personal. Lucius killed his mother in front of him and probably his dad too. Celia apologizes, but Rio says forgiveness isn't on the table and asks her to keep it quiet. Only a few know. Later, Lyslot hosts a meeting. Duke Huguenot says Lucius was a low-class noble and once a king's sword candidate, but his family broke down before he got there. Lyslot worries about Rios. Huguenot says Rios is a Proxia Empire ambassador, but isn't sure if he's the same one causing trouble. He plans to dig deeper. Afterward, Rio gets ready to bounce, but Lyslot insists on rewarding him. Under pressure from Lyslot and Huguenot, Rio agrees to hit the hero's party and meet Satsuki. Rio returns to Spirit Village where Miharu's hyped to see him safe. Rio tells her he found Satsuki and says no news yet on Miharu's brother. Rio invites Miharu and the crew to the hero's party in Galark Kingdom.